welcome you all in exploring the profound dynamics of Deific couples. We delve into the concept of rasa, the emotional flavors that shape divine relationships in sacred texts. These emotions, ranging from love and longing to joy and sorrow, reveal the complexities of vulnerability and connection between gods and goddesses, offering a rich tapestry for understanding the divine interplay of human-like emotions in sacred narratives. Through these stories, we can gain deeper insights into how the divine mirrors our own emotional journeys and relationships. This is Priyanka, delighted to welcome you all to the 6th edition of Orange City Literature Festival, organized by SGR Knowledge Foundation, powered by Rasas Education. Today, we have with us Miss Shalini Modi. She's an astrologer and avid follower of old Indian scriptures, the Vedas, Upanishads, Puranas, and epics, which she feels have a lot to offer. It is her belief that the stories of the philosophies in them are relevant to our lives even today, and parallels can be drawn to any situations in our lives. Before COVID, she ran an NGO called Pragati Kendra, which supported underprivileged children in their education and encouraged underprivileged women to become economically independent. The session will be moderated by Ms. Priyanka Kothari, a stay-at-home mom of 2. She's a cosmetic technology graduate and skincare educator, currently tutoring children in creative writing and reading. She is actively involved in NGOs like CMCA, Children's Movement for Civic Awareness, Akshar and Pranav in Nagpur, and Kolkata-based Prabhat Khaitan Foundation working for literature and art. She is an active member and patron of the Vidarbha Literary Festival, Nagpur's own literature festival. We welcome you both now. I will now hand over the session to you.
You on a beautiful book and with a really beautiful cover.
Thank you.
Thank you. So let us start with the start. When did you first become interested in ancient scriptures and astrology both?
Okay, so I've grown up hearing these stories, and as a child, they would transport me, this world of Rakshasas and Devatas, and it was really fascinating. And so that interest was there, and then astrology I grew up also seeing in my house. My mom was very fond of astrology, and she would always have some astrologer predicting something. And then my husband, I married a man who was also fond of astrology. And then certain times when predictions would come true, they would, years before I really got married or engaged, it was predicted when I was in class 5. And these things, intrigued me to know the science. It took me many years after to actually learn it. But I think what you grow up with around you kind of stays with you.
Definitely. So then when did you start writing?
Yeah, so writing I started very recently. I'm a COVID writer. Because one, I had time and I always wanted to write, but one, I didn't have the confidence whether I'll be able to. And secondly, the reason why I felt the need to write was because I felt the current generation, I see a lot of them here and I'm so happy, was drifting away because of, usually adults telling them, nahi bas aise karna hai and don't ask questions and, it's about faith and not questioning. But I feel that there's no harm in answering the questions. And so I started reading myself more and more. And I felt the need to simplify these stories to bring out, their interest to start reading our scriptures.
Wonderful, and thank you for that, because we really need it. So, but in any ways, there is a rise in mythology books and mythologists. Why do you think, what do you attribute this ki hamari generation, this millennials are really making an effort ki the other generation, the further generations learn, which is not happening prior?
So I think it's one, the social media has played a big role, I feel. COVID again, bringing that uncertainty in life has made people reach out for this spiritual, whatever, I mean, you could call it, and something to hang on to. And also the Indian government now is promoting religious pilgrimage. They have redone up so many places like Banaras corridor and Mahakaleshwar corridor. So all of this together, I think, because I see people visiting certain temples which, like from north going to east and visiting Kamakhya ji for one example, which earlier it would not happen, they won't even know about it. But I think the social media is spreading all of that. So I think it's an amalgamation of all of these.
Yeah, the need, and then the need was also fair, because I'm also so surprised to see youngsters coming just for the mandir, for the Mazina, which is, I think, attributes to these books and the interest that was created, because there's no other way happening. So, coming to the books, the 9 rasas is the aesthetics, like, but how did you first think of exploring the 9 rasas in scriptures? And then how did you come on to explain it with in the divine, again, the relationship of the deific couple with the deities per se?
So actually, if you see, we are a sum total of emotions and relationships. And so are our ancient scriptures. You'll find relationships and which are an integral part of kinds of relationships, and emotions. So rasas are actually the 9 emotions, or the 9 rasa basically in Sanskrit means juice or essence or something that so they in Natya Shastra, Bharat Muni has explained these 9 rasas, and usually in Bharatnatyam they are used and depicted by face expressions and mudras. So they are emotions, like Raudra ras is anger, Shringar ras is love and aesthetics, and Vibhats ras is disgust, Karuna is compassion. So then, while reading the story Mahabharata or Ramayana, I realized that each relationship had a unique flavor to it, or what characterized it was one emotion that actually stood out. So all relationships will have all emotions, of course, but one always outshines and kind of characterizes that relationship. So that's how I use. So the challenge was, of course, connecting the correct rasa with the correct relationship.
Yeah. That was my other question. That how did you decide that this rasa should be?
So basically, my thought process was that particular emotion should be overarching in their life, and उसी के कारण उनको जाना जाए, या उसी के कारण हम वो स्टोरी जब भी बात करें तो वो रस मेनली आगे आना चाहिए, या वो इमोशन. जैसे हम कृष्ण और रुक्मिणी की बात करेंगे, भगवान विष्णु और लक्ष्मी, तो इट्स ऑलवेज अबाउट श्रृंगार, एस्थेटिक्स, लव. सो वहाँ से एंड प्रॉस्पेरिटी. So वहाँ से श्रृंगार will only be there where there is prosperity. So from there, like Krishna and Rukmani, then Ravan and Mandodari, I thought were perfect fit for disgust, because even though she was a devoted wife, she never agreed with his ways. So there was always an element of disgust there. ऐसे ही so one unique thing which I felt was usually gopis and Krishna would also come in the Shringar ras, but I felt Hasya ras was more in tune, because उनका जितना भी interaction है, जब हम भागवतम पुराण पढ़ते हैं तो they're trying to joke with each other, and Bhagwan sarcasm, pranks, and sarcasm ke through Bhagwan is trying to teach them life lessons. So I'm sure a lot of you all must have heard about the story of Bhagwan Krishna ने चोरी कर लिए थे उनके कपड़े, but no one really knows the reason behind it. So he was trying to teach them a lesson, because हमारे scriptures में nude नदियों में स्नान करना वर्जित है. So you have to be very close, because ये अपमान होता है नदियों का. So and that's what they were doing, and they were doing it as a prayer to Krishna, to Kali Mai, for attaining Krishna. So this was his way of teaching them a lesson. So he he taught them lessons through fun, and so that's why. So these are the ways that I kind of narrowed down.
Wonderful. You had, this is your latest book. The prior book that you wrote about was Immortals, the Seven Immortals. So how did you come about, and like generally, how do you research? How do you get this information and interpret it?
So research I have, because I'm not writing fiction, so I have to be rooted in my scriptures and I have to be able to quote where I've taken my stories from. So I have to read the Puranas and Mahabharata and Ramayana. And also there are many writers block in the sense because the same story has been told in different texts differently. So I have to choose what resonates with me, because even they have actually differently depicted. And sometimes it's also that the story, only a part of the story is in one book, and then a part or the backstory is in another book. So sometimes it can take a lot of time to actually get the story together. Yeah.
So, like, what are your sources? Like, how?
So I basically, my sources are rooted in the original texts that are the original Ramayana, Mahabharata, different Ramayans of course. Valmiki Ramayana, Ramcharitmanas, Adhyatma Ramayana, there's so many Ramayans and different Puranas. And I usually like to get, the versions of Gita Press which have the literal translation. So they have the Sanskrit verse which I can keep going back to refer, and they have the literal translation. So there's no perception of any author or no coloring. So I know the story as is, and then I can do whatever.
That's you can be more objective.
And more correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, and then coming for your first book, which was Shravan, Swar and Darshan. So, what was your motive behind it? What triggered you to write that?
So that my first book actually started when I was just finishing my astrology course, and I realized that whoever came to you for an astrology read or wanted, all the questions were around similar desires. Basically, most of us have the similar desires: good health, good spiritual growth, a good spouse, healthy children, and so on and so forth. So I decided to use one desire for every chapter, and also when I learned Vedic chanting from my spiritual teacher 10 years ago, so she would always give us a backstory. Like she would give us a story from the Quran, and then she would tell us कि अब ये मंत्र करो or या ये स्तोत्र करो. So it kind of affirmed the connection, the reason why you're doing it. So I've given a story and then connected a chant and a temple which I have visited. I love visiting temples, so one unique temple which connects to this whole thing. So it's like a handy book that you can keep going back to refer when you need to.
Yeah. So so how do you think how does mantra, like there's a lot of talk about mantra chanting now, though it has been forever and we have been asked as kids also. So what is your take on the mantra chanting, and can you give, these are like young kids, so probably they are already not doing it, and can you give them some tips of how to start with and what to do exactly?
Yeah, so this is the other session on astrology also, we discussed this, but it's an important thing because sometimes people are at loss as to where to start. So I think any mantra that appeals to you or comes to you from elders, and any deity that you connect with, you feel the connect with, you should take up that mantra. It can be a small mantra, big mantra, anything, but just be persistent with the chanting. And it can bring about inner changes, which of course you won't see initially. It will happen over a period of time. That's if you are consistent and if you connect with that mantra. Of course, down the line, as you grow, maybe something else appeals to you more. So it's okay to change, or it's okay to do both. It's absolutely your journey, and I think you can. And again, like there was this whole discussion about which mantra is better or not. Every mantra is equally good because they have been designed, like you say, in a science lab में ये इन्वेंशन करके निकला, वैसे ये हमारे sages जो थे जब उन्होंने तपस्या की तो ये मंत्र came to them. They are not just a mumbo jumbo of mixture of words and sounds, but they are very potent, and they have been put together to create a sound vibration which is very positive and meaningful.
So have you seen changes, like, or have you observed something? What happens after you start mantra chanting?
Everyone's journey is different, and everyone's timeline will be different, because I believe that the sadhana comes from your last life. So whatever bank balance you've got, it goes forward, and that's where it stems from. Also, your connect. Someone might connect with one deity and someone with the other, so that's where it comes from. Yeah, personally, I have seen a lot of different kinds of changes. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask, like, the fact that you touch upon all your books and we'll come back to it. Also, I was very intrigued by the NGO that you started. So, what was the objective, and any success story or any story of the NGO that really moved you or you still remember, if you want to share?
So I think for me, it's more about educating the children. So I feel that every kind of NGO does their part work, but I always felt that instead of giving someone freebies, educate them so that they can earn it themselves, so make them capable enough. And that's why I always felt the need to teach these children, because a lot of them, in spite of going to school, because our system is such that the government teachers never get sacked, and they're not doing justice to the teaching. So these children lag behind a lot. They need that extra tuition. When our kids who study in the best of schools need tuition, then these kids definitely need it, and many times they can't afford it. So the idea behind that was that, and I think for me, one of the moments that is that I cherish till today is I done an annual day function, and the chief guest was Santosh Yadav ji. She's a mountaineer, and she's the only woman in the world to have climbed Mount Everest from a particular point. And she had received a Padma Shri for saving someone's life, and she danced with she herself was so touched that she was dancing with them, and her speech really inspired them to do something. Because she came from a very humble background in a village, and how she overcome her hurdles. So I think that was memorable.
Yeah, it's happy. So, what is your favorite rasa or the favorite couple?
So I think I'm a little biased being a Shiv Shakti Bhakt, but also so Shiv and Shakti, but also because they portray Shant Ras, and that's something that all of us are seeking. Silence and Shant, contentment and Shant, basically being calm in your mind. वो जो mind की activity है वो इतनी ज़्यादा रहती है कि you just want that peace, and that's what they denote, because when they're trying to reach, like when she's as Sati gives up her body, Shivji slips into her penance, and then she reincarnates as Parvati, and again she does penance to reach to him. So the way of reaching to each other is so beautifully through penance. That through sadhana, through that silence, they are reaching each other. So I think that.
So now, I would like to ask you, like, because you are a mythologist and an astrologer. So in both, do you find some misconceptions or misbelief about it, or some misleading notions about astrology and mythology? Like,
So you mean like combination?
not a combination.
Not a combination. So misgivings so हमेशा रहते हैं, because none of us know the subject well. Like even me, when I had not studied astrology, I had a lot of misgivings. But once you study it, तो वो थोड़ा सा clear हो जाता है. And same thing with mythology. The more you read, अभी भी like I won't say that I'm totally accomplished, I know everything, because as I read, my myths keep getting broken. So it also stems from a place of lack of knowledge. And whatever's put there out in front of you. And nowadays, so the social media is going totally crazy with astrology, especially.
Yeah, so that's what I was like,
So-
how do you like, either identify or maybe, some really rampant real myth or misleading information is around that so that you can at least, kind of judge if this guy is talking about this, probably it's not good.
See, it's very difficult because again, it's the person who's hearing it himself will not have the knowledge, will not be able to distinguish. But one thing for sure, I would say that for astrology or any kind of occult, don't try to become half-learned astrologers by hearing YouTube or whatever, because I get a lot of these people coming to me and with the, ये अभी Mercury retro हो गया तो ये problem हो गई तो वो हो गया. Unnecessarily it creates anxiety and stress. So go to a person who knows what they mean, and then for mythology, I would say like when I used to be confused, say I was watching CRK Ram, and there were a lot of stories or any other series for example, and then you come across a lot of stories which you haven't heard of. Now your initial reaction is to reject it and say, oh, ऐसे तो नहीं हुआ था, but that's because you don't know it all. So the best part is then to buy that original book and read yourself. So that's what I did. Like I bought a Valmiki Ramayana and I started reading it myself so that I could know, especially those areas where I felt that, oh, I didn't know this. So I think that's the best way to kind of know whether it did exist or not.
Yeah, and even your book has a lot of things, though they're very common gods and deific bodies, but still there's so many things which I came to know from your book, those aspects and this perspective. So I think this is the best part about your books is that everyone has a takeaway. You have it's just not like a story. Like most of the mythological books are like we eventually, get carried away to the story mode. But you kept us coming like why there was a story, but then every time you would tell us that why this story and why this reaction and why this thing. So that's a very useful mythology book that you have put out. So and I believe that then you think about it a lot and you believe about. So what is one such some value that you or some teaching that you really stick by, which are in the Vedas or any of the ancient scriptures, something that really one thing that sticks has always stuck to you.
I mean, वैसे तो there are a lot of things, but
It's
I
something.
think one thing that comes to mind is no judgment, like everything's fine. Like I had a session with Anand Neelakanji, and he has written a book. So it was mainly about his book, Dasaravi, and it's totally diagonally opposite to any spiritual following person. But that's what you take it as another perspective. Because even in ancient days, like in King Raja Janak ke court mein, बहुत debates होते थे, and different kinds of rishis like Yagnavalkya ji, there was Gargi, who's a lady philosopher, and Ashtavarka. All of these came and they presented their thoughts, and they could be diverse, they could be different. In fact, in King Dasharath's court, there was a sage called Jabali, and he came from the thought process of Charvaks, which were atheists. They did not believe in Bhagwan, they did not believe in life and death, and but he was there in the thought. So all thought processes were accepted. So I think for me that's.
So what is some very quirky thing that you came to know once you were like
So as I mentioned earlier, I think the quirkiest thing is like to have different versions of the same story. Sometimes even the number of wives and spouses are different from one book to the other. And at one point, while writing my next book, which is on Surya Bhagwan, I was so confused because the number of wives differed from different Puranas till I had to go and ask some Panditji, and I was like, what is this? He said, maybe he had, when that Puran was written, he had so many wives, and then in the next one. Yeah. So I think that is the quirkiest thing and the most difficult.
Okay, so like what like coming a bit to astrology with the young kids. So how do you think that astrology, or do you think what principles of astrology will help the modern day existence or relationship?
So I think one, astrology is not for weak-hearted people. Like people who get very scared with outcomes, I don't think should get their chart read. And people who are ready to use it as a cue, as to guide them, then get your chart read and with someone reputed, and then use it. Like if you know of your bad times, good times, how to plan, you can plan your life better. So use it as a guide. And don't be 100% sure that this is what's going to happen, because even in astrology, there's something called free will. So there's a period. They tell you कि ये period अच्छा है शादी के लिए, ये period अच्छा है पढ़ाई के लिए. But पढ़ाई तो आपको करनी है, spouse आपको ढूंढना है, so करना तो काम तो हमें ही है. But the period is congenial. So what happens is when you do that thing at that time, like ये period पढ़ाई के लिए अच्छा है, अब आपने पढ़ाई अच्छे से मन लगा के उस period में की, तो the benefit will be tenfold. So I think using it positively, but then you can't get scared. कि यही oh my God,
It's
अब ये
written
होने
in-
वाला है.
It's not written in stone.
Yeah, it's not
We
written in
can
stone.
actually
Absolutely.
change
Yeah.
also both ways. Now that you mentioned Mercury retrograde, and now there's a lot of this trend of full moon meditations and how the planets and the moon affect our mental health. So what's your take on that, and how because a lot of youngsters who are into this now.
I think moon as a planet, first of all denotes the mother and man in astrology. हमारे मन को और वैसे भी अगर हम देखें तो मून से ओशन में हाई टाइड लो टाइड होता है, and our body is made up of 75% of water. So हमारे emotions को moon, of course the high tide low tide within us also is caused by the moon. And not just, I would say Purnima to hai, which is full moon, but also Amavas. So these, anything connected to moon are very potent for any kind of spiritual practice. So this
is effective.
It is effective. It is definitely. If you see all our like a lot of our festivals are either on Purnima or Amavas. If you see Diwali Amavas पे है, काली पूजा अमावस पे है, राखी पूर्णिमा पे है, हमारे काफी सारे महापुरुष ऋषि सब पूर्णिमा पे जन्म हुआ है उनका. या तो अमावस या पूर्णिमा ये ही आप देखेंगे मोस्टली ऑल इम्पोर्टेंट इवेंट्स में.
So mythology and astrology, yoga, like now everything we are kind of reinventing and representing this. So where do you see that? How will these kids create that as their identity now? Like, how is mythology helping them, or how can they use mythology to shape their view about India?
I think again, it's like a guide. Like in my book also, I've said that the challenges, the vices, the desires of even the divine couples or divine entities is similar to humans. मतलब उनके वो desire भी हुई है, vices भी हुई हैं. अगर आप stories पढ़ेंगे तो बहुत similar है. और मतलब आप जैसे विश्वामित्र जी की स्टोरी तो बहुत कॉमन है कि वो इतनी तपस्या के बाद भी he fell for Menka, yeah. So things like that. But it's how we handle it is where the beauty lies and what we need to learn from. So I think even in my story, that's what I've kind of tried to do, that how these divine couples handled those vices or desires, or like Vishwamitra ji, once he realizes, he goes off for penance, or Gautam Rishi, once he realizes that anger has destroyed everything, all his punya, because of getting angry, then he goes back to the Himalayas to again meditate. So this recognition, also Kunti and Pandu, their relationship had fear right from the beginning to the end in their relationship, but because of their inner strength, they could handle it beautifully.
Yeah. So each story has a lesson, and all of them can be life lessons. It have explained properly. So I wanted to ask, like, if these kids want to start, which is the scripture they can start with?
I think the easiest would be for them to start with the Ramayana or Mahabharata because they can relate to it. There are festivals connected to it. Apart from that, I think even Quran, if any Quran, you've heard like a lot of Bhagavad Quran ka kafi part hai kahi mein. So anything that appeals to you, you can start with that. You can either buy the original text or the text of some translated ones by some authors. And I think make a start and then automatically I think things will just fall in place. You know what you like and what you don't.
Are they available in like Hindi, English?
Yeah, so the Gita Press is one which is a non-profit organization, so their books are very well priced, and you get the original text with the translation. Or there are many authors who have written. If you don't want to buy something that has been written with a perception, then you can buy something which has been translated. There are a lot of authors translating as well. So you can begin your journey.
So if Rasas is to become a Netflix series, so how do you think that should be dealt with or presented? Like because this is so much about relationships. So yeah.
So my book launch also began with a dance drama on Krishna and the gopis and showing the Hasiras. And I've been approached by a dance drama school to create a dance drama depicted event on some chapters. So taking that in mind, I feel that each chapter can be an episode showing that relationship and the rasa how it played out, and I think it will be interesting because I've seen some of these. In fact, there's one on one of the Netflix or one of these OTT platforms which had something to do with rasas and I mean, not relationship, but I don't know exactly what they were trying to portray. I didn't really see it. But there are many short stories presented nowadays on OTT, which I noticed, which address, like single issues. So similarly, this can do the same thing. Yeah.
So if you have really read a lot of ancient scriptures, and so which is one couple that you take? I think I know Shiva-Shakti couple.
But then that already.
Yeah. So which one character here we have seen that they are as human as us. So that you would like to meet from the past.
I think, since I've already spoken about Shiva-Shakti, of course, they could be, but it could also be Krishna and, or Vishnu and Lakshmi, or Krishna and Rukmani, because even Krishna and Radha, because they are also unique in their own way. Krishna Bhagavan is diagonally opposite to a lot of things, because he did everything, he broke all the rules, he did everything against the rules, but that was him. So I think Krishna is. Yeah.
So we come to my last questions, and then I will open the floor for the audience questions. Which is like you mentioned, there's a book. So what is in the pipeline?
Okay, so the book that will come out next year will be on Surya Bhagavan, which I've already completed and given it.
So it's it's just on.
So yeah, it might seem very on the face just about Surya Bhagavan, but it's about his entire family, all his people, data that move with him, a lot about. So there is a lot of small stories within it, and I don't know if you're aware, but Yamraj is his son, and Shani Dev is his son, and Yamuna River and Tapti River are his daughters. So each one has their lots of, and Yamuna River was married to Krishna Bhagavan. So there is a lot of, and I don't know if you've heard of Ashwini Kumars, but they were these horse gods. जिनके बेटे नकुल सहदेव थे. So there is a lot of interesting, branching out also. Ramji belonged to the Ishwaku Vansh, which was Ishwaku was a son, lineage of Surya Bhagwan. So there are a lot of interesting sub stories to it.
This sounds already interesting. I'm looking forward to read it. Now we can open the floor for audience questions. Yes, sure.
You given Rama, you read Rama and Mahabharata. Linking both I have like what misunderstanding. Ramayana, Ram is the king of the Ayodhya. Human civilization is shown there. Is it, am I audible?
Yeah.
No, not that. See in Rama, see Ramji is the king for the Ayodhya. It is shown that human civilizations exist in that Ayodhya in Naro. Even Vidilai also they shown from northeast. Then he travels after Sita kidnapping and it goes Kishkinda. There is Kishkinda, it is Western Ghats. And then he goes to Sri Lanka. In the entire this journey, there is no human being of characters. One is shown as the monkey face and the deer, and they end up with the Rasasa. Why it is shown? Is that human civilization is not there existed or entire India?
No, he meets a lot of sages, he meets a lot of different people on his way. अरण्य कांड में तो वो बहुत लोगों से मिलते हैं, बहुत ऋषियों से मिलते हैं, बहुत लोगों से मिलते हैं और उनको हेल्प भी करते हैं.
Rishi leave it. Rishi
तो humans ही हैं.
Other Rishi is okay. Rishi is okay human being. The entire the one this all this monkey is like a human. Human looks like a monkeys, and the Rakshasas like the Rishi. There is in Mahabharata if you see in the war portion. Who have participated, the kings from the south also, Pandya and also participated, you might have read that. They have shown clearly the names on. There's a contradiction in there, why it is so. Why it is not, I don't say, but you have read a lot of things, you please explain to me.
I don't think I'm capable enough to explaining why there are, but one thing is there, see in Treta Yuga, so I'm writing a book for kids which is about the magical beasts and birds of Ramayana. So from there, I can tell you one thing, that Treta Yuga came before Dwapar Yuga. The consciousness in many beings was much more advanced than us. Then, as the yugas proceed, like अब कलयुग में और consciousness कम है, द्वापर में थोड़ी ज़्यादा थी. So ऐसे करके consciousness diminishes. In Treta Yuga there were a lot of beasts and birds that could talk and had consciousness which was higher than today. So one is that, and secondly, humans नहीं थे ऐसा तो नहीं है, because अयोध्या मिथिला में तो सारे humans ही थे. मतलब आप जो भी settlement ले लीजिए, वो तो अरण्य में दिखाते हैं. अरण्य में वो ऋषियों से मिलते हैं, because ऋषि अरण्य में मिलेंगे. ऋषि आपको normal human beings, अयोध्या वासी जब भगवान को follow करते हैं, एक point पे भगवान उनको सोता हुआ छोड़ के चले जाते हैं, क्योंकि भगवान नहीं चाहते कि वो उनके साथ forest में आए. तो जो humans दिखाते हैं, तब तक settlement, we were not stone age people. सेटलमेंट शुरू हो गए थे, तो लोग रहते थे सेटलमेंट्स में फैमिलीज के साथ. तो अरण्य में तो सिर्फ सेजेस मिलेंगे आपको या एनिमल्स मिलेंगे, और कौन मिलेगा. तो जो आप देखें, अगर आप अयोध्या कांड देखें, बाल कांड देखें, अप टू जब तक भगवान फॉरेस्ट में नहीं जाते हैं तब तक आपको सब दिखेंगे, और फिर उसके बाद जब उनका क्राउनिंग हो जाता है तो फिर सब दिखेंगे. बट वो जो बीच का अरण्य कांड है, सुंदर कांड है, युद्ध कांड है, उसमें of course there's a mixture, because they will be there.
Aranya Kanda full of this Adhavan and Hanumanji and all the things. Sundar Kanda में
Again it's a carry forward ना, भगवान तो अरण्य में ही थे ना. हाँ, और फिर युद्ध कांड में भी वो राक्षसों से लड़ रहे हैं.
कोई नहीं है, human being only
राक्षस human नहीं.
Two people only, Ram and Lakshman, humans.
राक्षस को आप ह्यूमन फॉर्म नहीं बोलेंगे या क्या बोलेंगे. I mean they are also, they just demonic characters, but they are on the other side of the fence. But whether they are humans or not is not something that we can really.
It's not my question. Okay. It's not my question. My son asked me to bring that. Why it is not
I
depicted
don't
on the
think
cat.
I'm capable of. I don't think I'm capable of answering.
We can all look up. It's a nice question, but I think we have, yeah.
Don't mind me.
Not at all. Not at all.
That's a nice question, but we.
I think I'll have to probably understand it better myself first.
Madam, maybe a very naive question. Why it is called mythology? Why it is called mythology? I mean, I know it's probably lost wisdom or lost whatever you call it, but why the term mythology?
So see, some people connect it. सभी ने अक्षय गुप्ता जी का सुना तो उन्होंने बोला कि नहीं हमें नहीं बोलना चाहिए क्योंकि ये मिथ्या है. But then अगर आप देखिए तो myth जो word है वो Greek word है. वो मिथ्या से नहीं आया है. मिथ्या का मतलब false है, something that is not true. मिथ्या is a Sanskrit word. Mythology is not a Sanskrit word. It's not coming from mithya. It is not an English word that is derived from mithya. It is derived from a Greek word called myth. और जब आप myth को पढ़ेंगे उसका meaning है folk tales about people, you know. तो folk tales तो ये हैं, and it is your belief against mine. आप इसको सच माने तो आपके लिए सच है, नहीं माने तो नहीं है. So it's basically we are not forcing anyone to believe anything. So I mean I have stopped calling it mythology in many places. I've started referring to it as Puranas, Vedas and Mahabharata because काफी लोगों को ये नहीं जमता है. But actually में ये मिथ्या नहीं है. Myth doesn't mean मिथ्या.
Yeah.
Why Lord Rama left his kids?
Why he left his kids? I'm sure this must be a house discussion is why you're coming up with it.
Rama is the ideal person, ideal son. But why he didn't prepare Lord and Krishna to be why he is not ideal father? See, keep asking.
I'll ask, of course. So, क्या होता है ना बेटा जब what are you more comfortable me talking to you in English or Hindi? हाँ हिंदी. तो क्या होता है अगर आप देखें जब भी आप कोई भी काम करेंगे ना आप एक जन को खुश रखेंगे और एक को नाराज करेंगे. ये होता है कई बार. ठीक है, कभी हो सकता है आप कभी अपने पापा को नाराज करेंगे, मम्मी को खुश करेंगे. बहुत कम केसेस होते हैं जहाँ हम सबको खुश कर सकते हैं. तो राम जी जो थे उन्होंने डिसाइड किया था कि वो मर्यादा पुरुषोत्तम है और वो सब कुछ मर्यादा में करेंगे. जैसे मैंने बोला कृष्ण भगवान ने कोई मर्यादा नहीं रखी, उन्होंने वही किया कि उनको कुछ अच्छा लगा. तो भगवान ने अपनी मर्यादा, उनकी मर्यादा थी कि एक राजा का जो धर्म है वो टू द टी निभाना है. तो अगर कोई प्रजा में खुश नहीं है तो मेरे लिए वो खुशी ज्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है, मेरे परिवार की खुशी इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है. और उन्होंने जब उनका त्याग किया उसके बाद वो खुद भी वैसे ही रहते थे जैसे कि वनवासी रहते हैं. मतलब ये नहीं कि उन्होंने जाके दूसरी शादी कर ली या दूसरे बच्चे कर लिए. वो खुद भी जमीन में सोते थे, वैसा ही खाना खाते थे, फल फूल. उन्होंने खुद भी वही लाइफ लीड की. उन्होंने खाली अपने पद का जो राजा थे उसको 100% निभाया. सो ये कई लाइफ में सिचुएशंस आती हैं जहाँ पर हमारे लिए डिफिकल्ट होता है. देयर इज अ स्टोरी ऑफ अ किंग कॉल्ड शिवी और हमारे पुराणों से ये है. और वो राजा के पास एक बार वो बैठे थे तो एक कबूतर उड़ के आता है और कबूतर रो रहा होता है, कांप रहा होता है. बोलते हैं कि मुझे इस ईगल से बचाइए. ईगल उसके पीछे पीछे. तो उन्होंने बोला कि ईगल को कि नहीं ये मेरे शरण में आया, मैं तो इसको बचाऊंगा. तो ईगल ने बोला कि पर आप तो धर्म का पालन नहीं कर रहे बिकॉज मेरे को भूख लगी है और मेरा आहार यही है, नेचर ने मुझे यही आहार दिया है, तो आप मेरा आहार छीन रहे हैं. और ऐसे करके फिर वो कहानी इतनी उलझी कि राजा भी कंफ्यूज हो गया कि उसका धर्म एक्चुअली में क्या है. उसको पिजन को बचाना है, उसका आहार देना है. एंड आई डोंट रियली रिमेम्बर द एंड ऑफ द स्टोरी बट आई रिमेम्बर कि वो फिर मतलब एब्सोल्यूट एंड आई रिमेम्बर कि फिर वो बेसिकली देवता थे जो कबूतर और गरुड़ के रूप में आए थे टू टेस्ट वेदर ही न्यू हिज धर्मा. बट यही प्रॉब्लम है बेटा कि हर सिचुएशन में राइट और रॉन्ग मतलब हम अगर किसी के हीरो बनेंगे तो हम हमेशा किसी के विलन जरूर बनेंगे. मतलब ये आपको बहुत इंस्टेंसेस मिलेंगे। कृष्ण भगवान ने भी जब उल्टा सीधा करके पांडवों को जिताया तो गंधारी ने उनको श्राप दिया, क्योंकि उनके उल्टे सीधे वे से लास्ट में भी दुर्योधन को उन्होंने बोला कि तुम ऐसा करना, जिसके कारण उसकी डेथ हुई। तो मदर को बहुत बहुत अपसेट हुई मदर कि मेरे 100 पुत्रों को तुमने मरवा दिया। तो अब कृष्ण भगवान तो धर्म के साइड थे, पर किसी ना किसी को तो उन्होंने भी हर्ट किया। सो लाइफ इज नॉट ब्लैक एंड व्हाइट।
There's one more take also. Like, अगर
हम मानते हैं कि राम भगवान कुछ गलत नहीं कर सकते और हम इसी पे स्टिक करते हैं, तो एक पर्सपेक्टिव ये भी है क्योंकि उन्होंने सुना था कि 2 लोग उनकी वाइफ के बारे में बहुत बुरा बोल रहे हैं, तब उनके बच्चे नहीं हुए थे, शी वाज ओनली प्रेग्नेंट, तो उनकी वाइफ के बारे में बुरा भला बोल रहे थे। तो जब उन्होंने उनको निकाला तो अभी आपको कौन बुरे लग रहे हैं? राम की सीता? आपको लग रहा है ना राम ने गलत किया है ना, उनको उनके बच्चों को छोड़ दिया, तो आपको लग रहा है कि राम भगवान गलत है ना? पर उनको लगा था कि मैं अपनी बीवी को अब कैसे सेव करूं। ये ऐसी सिचुएशन थी, जैसे मैम ने बोला कि बहुत डिफिकल्ट सिचुएशन थी। सो वो इतनी डिफिकल्ट सिचुएशन थी कि वो कुछ नहीं कर सकते थे, वो साथ में नहीं रह सकते थे। तो उन्होंने बोला कि मैं तुमको हटाता हूँ। तो फिर कौन, आपको लग रहा है ना कि राम जी खराब है, पर उन्होंने अपनी वाइफ के लिए किया। तो सीता को हमेशा मालूम था कि वो उन पे जुल्म नहीं कर रहे हैं, उन्होंने उनको अबैंडन नहीं किया है, उनकी रेपुटेशन खराब नहीं हो, इसीलिए राम जी ने उनको बोला कि तुम चले जाओ। ओके, तो हर चीज को हम जब हमारे पास ऐसे क्वेश्चन आते हैं ना, तो 2-4 ऑप्शंस होते हैं, हमको सोचना चाहिए कि बेस्ट वाले ऑप्शंस पहले कौन से हैं।
Thank you, everyone.
thank you for your question.
As we conclude the session, we are reminded that Rasas in the divine relationship reveal how emotions and vulnerability shape both sacred and human connections. These stories remind us that even in the divine realm, emotions guide love, growth, and transformation, deepening our understanding of the relationships. Further on, I would like to thank Rupa Publications for their support in powering this session of the 6th edition of Orange City Literature Festival 2024. The writer will be available for book signing event. If you buy the books, ma'am will be there to sign them